You're on, Alan.
All right, thanks, Jackie. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. My name is Alan Russo. I work at the Chatham County Council on Aging at the Senior Center in Pittsburgh. And woodturning is my hobby, so thanks for joining me today. As usual, before we get started with a demonstration today, I want to show you what we worked on last week because I finished up a couple of things. If you remember,
Alan, could you
Yes.
go ahead and reintroduce yourself? I didn't have you spotlighted, and we can cut out of the beginning. I'm a pain in the butt.
Okay. Good thing I could edit these.
I learned how to yesterday.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Woodturning with Alan. My name is Alan Russo. I work at the Pittsburgh Senior Center, the Eastern Chatham Senior Center with the Council on Aging. And woodturning is my hobby. And today we're going to try something a little different. And well, I'll show you in a minute. Before we get started, as usual, I'd like to show you what we've been working on. And last week, if you remember, we worked on that trivet or whatever you want to call it, the square thing with the round circles in it. So I decided I was going to use it as a trivet rather than a piece of wall art. So really all I did was I sanded it down real smooth and I sanded over the edges. I thought about routing the edges, but there was such a small area right here. I didn't want to over route that. So let's see if you can see through that. Can you guys see through it? So there's actually circles on one side, circles on the other, and they're intertwined. And I didn't put a finish on this because I was thinking that if you really use it as a trivet with a hot pot, I don't know how the finishes would react to putting a really hot pot on there. So this is mahogany and it's really durable. And I think I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Okay. I also started working on this Cedar Bowl and I basically finished it. The original plan was to possibly put a cover on it, but I haven't decided whether I'm going to do that yet. So just to show you a different shape for a bowl. And I didn't actually finish the inside. I put some beeswax and oil on the outside. And this is, something's coming up on my phone. Hold on. Okay, never mind, sorry. As you can see, I mean, cedar is just beautiful wood. And because it smells so good, I decided not to finish the inside. This way, all the smell can come out still. Now, obviously, this is not a bowl that you would eat out of. This would be something you'd put maybe your keys in or whatever. Maybe even put some flower arrangement in there or something like that. So those are the two things we worked on last week. And very interesting, this wood was really, really dry. And when I was done, I was sanding it. And once I finished sanding it, I turned the lathe off. And little by little, I started hearing crack, crack, crack. And it actually started to split. And they're called heat checks. When you sand too hard and you build up friction in some kinds of woods, you probably can't see that on the screen, but there's a crack right there, which wasn't there before. And there's another smaller one up in this corner someplace. So I've had that happen before and I should have known better. But if you sand too hard and the wood gets too hot from the friction, the wood could actually start to split. You get these little heat cracks. It usually happens on things like apple, like fruit woods. That happens a lot. The first time it ever happened to me was on apple. And so, if next time I know to be a little bit more careful and a little bit less aggressive with the sanding. Okay. Any questions on those two? So what I thought we'd do today, and I think hopefully I didn't bite off more than I can chew, because as I started preparing this, I realized that this is a little more difficult than I thought it was going to be. So a while ago, I made this thing right here, and I call it the try box. It's actually a box that has 3 different lids in 3 different spots, like this. And I think I decided to change the name of it. I don't like the word tri-box anymore. I'm going to call it the triptych box. A triptych is when you have 3 photographs or 3 pictures in a row on a wall that match together. So I kind of like triptych box. You notice that it's square. Now, I'll explain this in a little while, but I'm going to bring this really close so maybe you guys can see. You notice I textured the outside of this. Can you see the little dimples?
That's
by
cool.
any chance?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I actually wasn't planning on doing that, but I had to because of the way that I have to hold this on the lathe, and I'll show you that in a minute. So I've been trying to think for the last couple of days, how can I do this without having to texture it to have a nice smooth outside? And I think I figured out a way. So, you know, bear with me and this will make sense in a second, okay? So let me, I need to move my camera around so I could show you how we set this up. So there we go, right there.
I'm going to step away from it. I'll be back.
So I'm going to work with this piece of wood right here. And I was playing around with it. It's a really very cool piece of wood. This is really spalted. It's white and dark, and it's dark spalted. It's really a very pretty piece. My plan was originally to use this to make a vase, but I thought it would be interesting to make something out of this. So if you look at this, you'll notice that these 3 circles are directly in the center. So to do that, what we have to do is find the center of this piece of wood. And one of the ways you can do that is just measure from side to side. But I kind of cheat because I have this what's called a center finder measuring tool here. And you go to, it's 3 3/8. Then you go to the bottom right here and you find 3 3/8. And you make a mark right there. I'm going to do that down at this end also. 3/8 right there. Now I'm going to connect those 2 lines because I want to have a center point. I have a wobbly table here. Anybody have a napkin or a sugar packet? So the other thing that made this a little difficult was it's kind of hard to see the lines because of all the spalting. Okay, so here's what I decided. You notice that this piece of wood is not square. So I decided that what happens is you have to clamp this really hard on the lathe. And what it does is it leaves these indentations. And that's the reason I textured that, because I couldn't figure out how to get those indentations out. So what I decided after trying to figure out all different ways of doing that, I decided to leave this wide. And when I'm done with the piece, I'm just going to hit it go on the table saw and just take off a little less than 1/8 of an inch on each side, which will get rid of those marks, and then I can sand it down. So this is not square, and you don't have to make it square, obviously, if you don't want to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark also about 1/4 of an inch from the end here on both sides. And because I know I'm going to take about 1/8 of an inch off the sides, I'm going to mark off about 1/8 of an inch so I know not to go beyond that point, or I know that's where my end is actually going to end up later on. Okay, just one second, guys. So now I also have to find the center of the piece of wood in there because I want the one in the middle to be in the center. So again, I find it's 9 inches. And on this tape measure, if I find the number 9 at the base right here, that's the perfect center. So what I'm going to do is I need to get an idea of what this is going to look like. So I'm going to use my compass to make a circle right here. Now, I don't want that circle to be really big because this is the area that I'm actually going to carve out and make the bowl. And I don't want it to end up too close to the edge. And the other reason is I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. And I'm going to use a Forstner bit to start this. And I'll explain why I'm doing that in a little bit. So there's my first, oops. There's where the first box is going to end up. Now, I marked this 1/4 of an inch on both sides because I want the edge of the box on this one to be at that point so I can make my other circle right here. By the way, guys, if this is not making sense or you have any questions, please just jump out and ask. And I have my 1/4 inch from that end. And one of the reasons I don't want to go to the end is because I need my lids to overlap the size of the hole. And I don't want to, obviously don't want them hanging off the end, okay? There we go. Let me see if you guys can see that. There we go. So I have my three places that I'm going to make my holes, and like I said, I'm gonna drill those out first, and so you know I already did that on the other side. So I have my 3 points right here. So now I'm going to move over to the lathe so I can explain how I'm going to hold this thing, which is a little tricky. Now, you guys have all seen this chuck before. Now, this is a 4-jaw chuck, but to do something square like this, because this needs to be mounted in here like this, if the other pieces were here, you wouldn't be able to do that. So what you do is you remove two of the, what do you call these things? Grabby things? I just lost my mind. I can't remember what you call these. But you need to take 2 of them off so you could actually lay this in here and hold the piece. Now, I already know where the center point is on these holes. So the way I figure out where to mount this is I slide it up and down until my tailstock hits that center point. Then I tighten this down really tight, and that's what holds this. So here's one of the things you have to keep in mind if you're thinking about trying something like this. First of all, this is a really dangerous thing to do on this lathe because this lathe is not variable speed. I can't turn it way down. So it starts off at about, 400 RPM. The other thing is when you slide this down, you can't go so far that, let me release this, that it's going to hit the bed of the lathe like this. So one of the things that's nice about this lathe, because I want that to be there, is you can actually turn this headstock and work off the lathe like this. So let me move this around so you guys can see. Sorry, for some reason my computer picture got really, really small, so I couldn't see it. All right, let's get that like that. So since I don't have a tailstock out here anywhere to figure out where center is, what I did was I marked the center while the lathe was turned around on each one of these holes. I drilled them out and I clamped them down really hard. Probably can't see that well, but there are these marks right here that I'm going to get the jaws. That's what these are called, jaws. The jaws to actually sit into, so I know that this is actually centered because I already centered it before. So make sure we lock that down really tight. Then we get, Hold on. I'm missing a tool. There it is.
Took it.
Got it. So this is locked in to right where center is. It's nice and flat against there. Now I'm going to lock this down really, really tight, and you'll see why in a minute. And I'm actually a little nervous to turn this because, like I said, we're starting at a higher speed than it really should be. And it's a little scary. So I'm going to just move the camera a little further back like this in case it comes flying off. Make sure I have all my safety equipment on and stand back and then hit this thing. Oops. Of course it's locked in.
Yes, thank you for having your safety equipment on.
Right.
No.
So I'm actually gonna move around to the other side of the lathe to turn this on because I don't want to reach over. So you can see how dangerous this is. Now, the other thing is a normal tool rest won't reach out here. So this lathe actually came with an extension. So you can do stuff like this. It's called outboard turning. Now, it's really important that you turn this by hand to make sure that it's not going to hit this tailstock. I mean, the tool rest at all. And that's a little too close for comfort right there. I'm going to do that just like that. And I'm going to lean on that really hard. Make sure this is really tight. And then make sure this is really tight. And let's see what happens when I turn this on again. All right, guys. That's a little nerve-wracking. This lathe is just not heavy duty enough for this. And I really wish I could turn this down. But we're going to try it, see what happens. I'm going to start working on this one right here. And obviously, it's not going to be so off balance when I work on the center one. Excuse me.
I jump back from my computer screen every time you turn that on.
What's that?
I jump back from my computer screen whenever you turn it on.
You know, I was gonna make this a really small, like that other piece, but I decided, I'm thinking, I'd really like to make a little bigger one to make it actually useful for something. But after I turned the lathe on, it was a little scary. And this lathe, unfortunately, is not real heavy, and that's one of the reasons it's bouncing around a lot. But I'm gonna start it. If it looks like it's getting a little too crazy, I'm gonna stop, go to the center one, and then I'll work on it a different time when you people aren't watching me fly all over the place. So again, I'm just going to turn this by hand and make sure everything is really locked in place. And as you can see, I said I was going to mention this later. One of the reasons I started this with the Forstner bit is so I don't have to touch this rim with the tool. And I want this way they're all, because I'm really bad at duplicating things, even when I measure sometimes. So I thought that it would help for me to, just start off with a Forstner bit. Okay. So wish me luck. Yeah, guys, I'm thinking this is not going to happen. This is actually wobbling the headstock. I'm going to try it one more time. Maybe that wasn't tightened down as much as it should be.
So, Alan, you explain what you're seeing so that it's helping you make a good choice in terms of not going forward until you figure something out.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of that, Jackie. I'm sorry.
Can you explain what you're visually seeing and how you're making the decision that it doesn't seem like it's a safe thing for you to do at this point?
Yeah, the lathe is actually, for this size piece of wood, the lathe is actually too small and the speed is too fast. So it's wobbling around too much to make it be safe. So what I'm going to do now is just to show you how I'm going to eventually get those out. I'm going to move it to the center piece. This way you can see how I'm going to hollow this.
So essentially, what you're saying is when you're trying to do the end ones, you've got too much. It's like you got too big of a moment arm or something, so it's kind of throwing off the weight balance.
Well, it's
is that
because
it?
all the weight is to one side,
Yeah.
and when you spin it, it wants, it's just
Right.
off balance. It's just way off
Right.
balance.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna lock that in real tight. Unlock this back here, and that's a little bit more sane. So I'm gonna hollow this out so you can see how I'm eventually gonna hollow out the rest of these. And let's spin that around one more time, make sure that's good. Okay. Because now there's an even amount of wood on both sides, it's spinning nice and smooth. But when the wood is all the way on one side, it's trying to whip around. It's going too fast. It's really going too fast. Okay. So let's turn that on and put it in there. I'm going to use a scraper, guys. All right, I need to raise the tool rest because I am using a scraper. And the turn, I don't know if you can hear me with that faceplate on, but as pretty as this wood is, I'm noticing it's, as I'm turning it, it's not cutting as well as I'd like. It's a little punky, but we'll see what we can do the best we can. Yeah, this wood is not cutting real easy. So I'm also noticing one of the other things that's happening is because the tool rest is extended so far, it actually has more give in it than it normally does. And it's actually, probably can't see it, but I could feel it. It's bouncing up and down a little bit. I want to make sure that I don't go through the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure up here the thickness of the piece of wood. Give myself about 1/8 of an inch or a little bit more, maybe 1/4 of an inch at the bottom, and then measure how deep I am. So I still have a good amount to go, but it's always a good idea to check, because after all this work, you don't want to go through the bottom of the piece. All right, I'm going to check the depth again. And piece of wood is deeper than I thought it was. Let's see. So we still got a good 1/2 inch at least to go. And I'm going to try to use, because even though I'm working, this is not wobbling around a lot, it's still pretty dangerous, because if I get my finger on this side of this at any point, there's always a catch point right here. So I'm being really careful. So rather than keeping my fingers that close, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move this like this to give myself more stability on the tool rest. See if that helps. And I'm going to go back to using the scraper. This way I can be out here away from where my fingers can get caught. All right, let's see where we are with the depth. It's still vibrating an awful lot. Yeah, we still got a little ways to go. But yeah, this is a really tough piece of wood. It's not cutting well. It's very punky. It's tearing more than it's cutting. So when I get closer to the bottom, I'm actually going to switch tools to try to clean that up a little bit. Hey, Ken, I might have to come over to your house and finish this on your lathe.
You're welcome to come anytime you like.
All right, let's, I want to clean this up a little bit. I'm going to try to use this. If this doesn't work, I'm going to get just a bigger scraper. Yeah, because that's a skinny tool. It's a small tool. I could actually feel it chattering. Let me, I'm going to get a bigger scraper with us. Let's see, that's nice and straight. Okay, good. I'm going to move this camera a little bit to the front here so you can see. So I have one of them hollowed out. Now, of course, that needs to be sanded and everything. So trying to think of where we're going to go from here, because I don't really want to mess around with the rest of this while in video, because it'd be kind of gross if my finger comes flying off.
Alan, if you decide you would like to come over, you're welcome anytime, but I'm not sure I've got a chuck that's as big as your 4-jaw chuck that you're using.
What? Let's see.
I've just
What is
got
the thread on yours?
I beg your pardon?
What is the size thread on your lathe?
Oh, the threads are the same, but the size of your jaws, you have much larger jaws on your chuck than I do. My chuck wouldn't open nearly that wide.
Well, if it's the same, I could always just bring this chuck. Well, the other thing is I'm thinking, I don't think I'd be able to turn it because you can't get as high. What's the throw on your lathe? It's less than this one, right?
What's the meaning of throw?
Yeah, you know the distance from the center to the bottom of to the base.
Oh, no, I forgot. Yeah, I can't turn my headstock around like you do. And it's
Yeah,
only,
right.
it's only
okay.
9 inches. You're right. I forgot about that.
Well, you know what, guys? Like I said, I think I took on more than I can chew at this one in the beginning, but it's actually a good lesson because, you know, even this is a hobby and I really enjoy doing it, but it's not worth getting hurt over. And even though I have an idea, the ideas don't always work out. And this would work out if I had a different lathe. As a matter of fact, this is a really cool project. But on this lathe right now, I don't think I'm going to work on it. I'll think about it and I'll try to figure out a way to actually get those turned out. One of the things I might do is actually just drill them almost all the way through and then just clean up the bottom. So it's only on the lathe for a short period of time.
That's real.
So the next part of this would be making the lids. And obviously the lids we'd make the way we'd make any other lid. And we wouldn't have to worry about the lathe going crazy all over the place. All right. So I'm going to just pop this off. Well, you know what? Actually, I'm going to leave that on there. I'm going to turn this around.
I know this didn't come out the way you wanted, Alan, but it's probably one of the best lessons you've given. I really learned a lot about safety and stuff like that. I really appreciate the lesson.
Thanks. Let's see what time is it here. It's actually 11:56 already. I feel like I haven't accomplished anything, and I really apologize, guys. But while here, we actually have a little bit of time. Anything else you want to see that we could work on without killing ourselves?
I had an idea about how to save the side of the board that you're working on. you said you could put it on the bandsaw and chop off 1/4 of an inch, and that would work perfectly well. But if you had some just scrap piece of wood you could put on either side of the piece you're working on, scrap piece you're going to throw away, and then put it in the jaw and let the jaw destroy the piece you're going to throw away, like a shim or just a little scrap piece of wood.
Right.
Then you could, release it and throw the old thing away, and you still have a smooth piece left on the side.
Yeah, that was one of the ideas that I had. And I was actually thinking about maybe hot gluing that extra piece on there. Or there's another thing that you can do is you could actually glue it on with regular wood glue with paper in between. It usually peels off. But I think the easiest thing, since the size of the wood, I'm actually able to cut it off with the table saw. It comes nice and straight and it's smooth in general.
Yeah,
so
that's probably
the
better,
other thing I'm thinking of doing, guys, if this doesn't work out, which is okay because they don't always, I might actually cut this, keep it just one, oops, you can't see what I'm doing here. Let's see, move that here. So I'm thinking maybe I could just cut it off, cut both sides of this off, and only have one square box. Just make one lid and just keep this as a square box. Just take these two away, which would be a lot safer, certainly work on. Okay. So that's actually another option. Okay. Anybody else have any questions at all?
If you cut off 1/3 of it, would you be able to do the other two? So you'd have a board with 2 holes instead of 3?
You mean like so?
Yeah.
Just cut off one side, have 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Actually, that's even better than what I was thinking of. I was thinking of cutting these off and having 1, but because when I actually move it to do this one, there won't be so much weight on that side that'll wobble the lathe so much. And I'll actually be able to do that right from the center here.
Yeah, that might work.
You know what, Ken? I'm glad you said that. And I think you just solved the day. I think you just saved the day here.
That's the thing I like about the wood turning is that it's a bunch of little puzzles you have to solve one after the other after the other.
So here's what I'm going to do, guys. That's actually really good. I'm really glad that you came up with that idea, Ken. I like that. As much as I would like to have this as a 3-box, I think it's just a little too crazy. So I'm going to measure the distance from this edge to here, which is just a little bit, let's see. That's almost exactly a 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to measure from the edge of this box to right here, which is a 1/2 inch. I'm going to draw myself a line. Straight across like this. So now I have those two centered right there. And I'm going to head over to the chop saw, which is over here. Let me get my safety goggles on. Just line up my blade on there. I'm going to leave the line. So now we're making a 2-box instead of a 3-box. It's a duo box. And this, I could always use to make another one. So let's go back over to the lathe, guys. Thank you for coming up with that idea, Ken. Try to
You're
get this a
welcome.
little bit closer. There we go. Now, those marks that I had already put in this piece of wood are still going to work, because we're not trying to center it on the piece of wood. We're trying to center it on that spot right there. So we're going to lock that down really, really tight. Now, this is still going to be off balance, but it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be so off balance that it's going to make some crazy noise. So let's just test it out. I'm going to step real far out of the way here. And that is doable, my friends. So now we take this off. We don't need the extension anymore on the tool rest. Slide it off that end of the lathe. Put it on this end of the lathe. Put that up like so. Turn it by hand to make sure we're good. And that's actually perfectly centered. I could see the mark right there. Lock that in, turn it on again. There we go. And because this is more solid, the tool is cutting so much better. Rather than vibrating in the piece, it's actually solid in cutting. All right, I'm going to switch to that scraper because that tool is a little too small. And I also need to turn this on. Hopefully it doesn't blow you guys out. Let's see. So I can see better. All right, I think I'm going to stop there for now and just take this off here so you can see what we're. And let's see here. All right, so we have our 2 holes, we have our 2 boxes, and now all I'm gonna need to do is make the lids. And it's actually after 12, so I don't think I'm gonna start the lids today, but let's move the camera around a little bit here. All right, let's see here.
Alan, the lids and the fennel that goes on top might be a good thing for next time.
A little, for some reason I can't get this loud enough for it to hear people. What was that, Ken?
Oh, okay. I said the lids and the fennel might be a good thing for next time.
Yeah, that's an idea. So I'm not sure if I'm going to work on this before that, or I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Boy, that was
up with something else.
that was one of the best classes you've had. I really liked that one a lot. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think it was one of the worst ones that I had. I feel like it was a little bit of a failure, but it's like you said, one thing about wood turning is trying to figure stuff out. And certainly, you know, what I really like about the wood turning community in general, like we could feed off of each other. Like, you know, like I said, I was thinking about cutting it down to make a box just this size. And then when you said that, it made a lot more sense to break it down a double box instead of a triple box. And I think that's a much better piece than I was thinking about doing. So I appreciate that. Yeah, problem solving and community. And then, yeah, there's a lot of really good wood turners out there, and you get great ideas, not only from watching them on, you know, on YouTube or on the computer or wherever. By the way, I want to show you guys this. If there's anybody else out there besides Ken who can see this. This is a magazine called American Woodturner. Actually, an American Association of Woodturners, and this is the journal of the American Association of Woodturners. It comes, I think, 4 or 5 times a year. And, you know, I mean, the first page you open up, you see pictures of things that give you inspiration or give you ideas. And there's all kinds of articles about making all kinds of things. This guy makes vases from pieces of wood that that people are just throwing away. So there's all kinds of things like this. And this is interesting because I've never done off-axis turning, which this article is about. And yes, on Monday, I actually came out to the garage to try to duplicate what he was doing, to try to use that as the demo. It didn't work out at all. So yeah, I actually need to be in a demonstration, I think, of an off-axis wood turner before I could actually learn that. I'm more of a hands, like, you know, reading something in a book sometimes is hard for me to actually duplicate, but yeah. So you get ideas, you try them, you know, they don't work, and that's cool. You just, you work into whatever you're interested in doing. All right, guys, I appreciate you coming. And if it was interesting, if anything else,
Well, and like,
was interesting.
I love
like
it.
like Ken said, I think it was a really informative one. That's why I was trying to ask some questions about what you were seeing, because you are so good at what you're doing, Alan, that you know what you're seeing and what it means. And it's trying to convey that to somebody else. So thank you so much. Appreciate all you do, Alan.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, like wood turning is a visual thing. It's really hard to just listen, try to figure out what we're talking about. But
Right.
yeah, what I enjoyed about this was actually trying to figure this out. I mean, I was out here since about 8:30 this morning working on this. and trying in my head to figure out how I was going to explain what I was doing. But
Right.
yeah. Well, anyway.
You
But
did
thanks
Good
again,
job.
guys. I appreciate it. Next time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Take care, everybody.